Good evening and welcome to Prime of Midlife. I hope you're all well. For some reason this evening I am feeling a bit bleh, or wabbit as we would call it here, or just a bit exhausted. I think all of us are going through that just now, just with so much happening in the world and your brain's going a million miles an hour, trying to work out what do I do, have I got this, have I got that, do I need this, do I got that, which was very bad grammar by the way. So rather than do any of the pantry up the stairs or anything, I have basically been sitting in the chair with my book. Now, this would be my book. This is my recipe book. I'm sure everyone has one. Banana bread. If you've watched the videos, you will see the one for easy sandwich bread. Yeah, I did it in a fountain pen and I got a huge blot. But that was my favourite bread. I've got slow cooker onion chutney in here. And today I have added scurly and potato scones, which are both very Scottish things. And they were taken out of the Glasgow Cookery book. Now, the Glasgow Cookery book was started ages ago for the Glasgow School of Domestic Science or whatever, basically cookery school for girls in Glasgow. And it was the very basics and a bit more probably for domestic service or going into cooking jobs, etc. And so I thought, right, I'm going to take some stuff out of there. And then I'm going to take stuff out of Ma Broon's cookbook. The Broons is a cartoon strip in the Sunday Post newspaper in Scotland. And they're a large family. The stories are roughly based in a sort of 50s family dynamic. And Ma Broon does a lot of cooking and jam making and all that. And I know that I previously had used that one for rose hip syrup, and I think that's going to be quite an important recipe because it's huge in vitamin C. And obviously if we have all these supply chain problems and food shortages and stuff, you're not going to be able to get your vitamin C from oranges just quite as easily as you can just now. But when I made it before, I literally went along the road up in the countryside, like the first road that goes out to the countryside from my village, and picked 2 pound of rose hips in an afternoon. Did the thing, boiled them up, put them through the muslin bag and made them into a syrup and made it into like a cordial. And that is a very, very good source of vitamin C. So good that in wartime Britain, they actually used that for the kids, and they said in like school holidays and stuff, they said to the parents, take your kids out to the countryside for the day, pick the rose hips, we'll give you a voucher. The government will have factories making rose hip syrup. If you pick them for us, we will give you a voucher and you get the free jars once it's done, so you don't have to try and make it because of obviously sugar was rationed, etc, etc. So rose hip syrup will be going in here as well. And I think it's a good idea just now because obviously, there's threats of power cuts, there's threats of this, that and the next thing. And the last thing I want to be doing is, if I'm really struggling, running through going, oh, I know I've got a recipe for that somewhere. I am going to have my recipes. I mean, scurly is literally oatmeal dripping and onion. And it's as a side dish, basically similar to what you would have as couscous or something like that. We have that with mince, and you have the oatmeal instead of the potatoes. And if you take that same recipe and put it in pudding skins, that's your white pudding recipe. And white pudding is a very, very filling item for meals. So that's what I've been doing this evening, is getting out my book, not using my fountain pen this time because that blot is a big mess, and thinking of what recipes do I have that I know of that are not all fancy schmancy, that are going to be cheap to do, So that's what I've done. As I say, there's skirly there. I've done potato scones, which is basically flour and potatoes. I'm going to have rosehip syrup. I'm going to get oat cakes. Anything that is cheap and easy to make that I can make here saves me having to go and buy something. And also it saves me having to look for something else. You know, I don't want to be looking for orange juice if it's difficult to get. I've got rosehip syrup there. I don't need orange juice. You know, if I'm looking for crackers or something, well, I'll have oat cakes. If you're looking for hash browns, I'll have potato scones. So all these little things that I could use this instead of that, I could use this instead of that. And if you can make it at home cheap enough, then I think that's a really good option to have. And I will be practicing some of them. I will obviously film myself making skirly, because it will be the first time I've ever done that, and potato scones. But it's something to think of. The actual thought process was, I went and looked up the price of butter again. It's still at £1.75. And I thought, would it be cheap enough making it? So I worked it out with the price of cream. And the butter's £1.75, and if I made it myself, it would cost me £1.77, not counting the power, just for the cream. So that really would be a false economy. But making potato scones instead of buying hash browns, that's not a false economy. That's a straight swap. That's easy enough done. You know, things like that. So yeah, I think it's time we got our recipe books out, had a look at them. And it could be, certainly with the Glasgow cookbook, there's maybe 4 or 5 recipes that I'm looking to have for cheap, filling, easy to make. You know, if I'm struggling, if the grid goes down, I can do it on the wood burner, etc. There's maybe 4 or 5 in the whole book. And now that I've got the bit between my teeth, I shall be going and looking at my other cookbooks. And things like, you know, if you have a load of onions from the garden, make some into chutney. Because if you mix that with some sandwiches or something, then it just expands what you've got available. So yeah, that's what I've been up to tonight. So I hope you have a good night, and I'll speak to you later.